The soft glow of a late spring evening filtered through the window of Margaret's cozy living room in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon. At 62, Margaret had always been the kind of woman who found joy in the small things: a good book, a hearty laugh with her husband, Tom, and a glass of wine shared on their patio as the sun dipped below the horizon. But lately, those moments felt harder to come by. Margaret noticed the changes in her body, the way her legs felt heavy after a short walk, the faint tingling in her fingers when she woke up in the morning. Tom, 64, had been quieter too, his usual warmth tempered by a subtle distance she couldn't quite place. It wasn't that the love had faded, far from it, but something had shifted, a quiet barrier that neither of them knew how to address. Margaret sighed, swirling the last sip of her usual grocery store Cabernet in her glass, wondering if this was just what aging looked like. But then, a thought struck her. Could the right wine do more than just taste good? Could it actually help her and Tom feel more alive, more connected? That question lingered as Margaret set her glass down and pulled out her laptop, her curiosity piqued by a recent article she'd skimmed about the health benefits of certain wines, especially for those over 60. She'd always thought of wine as a simple pleasure, a way to unwind after a long day, but the idea that it could improve circulation, and maybe even intimacy, felt like a revelation. At 62, Margaret knew that circulation issues were no small matter. Poor blood flow could lead to fatigue, cold extremities, even heart problems, and it often took a toll on intimate relationships too. She and Tom had felt that strain lately, the way their once effortless closeness now required more effort, more intention. But what if a glass of wine could help? What if the right bottle could bring back some of that spark? Margaret leaned forward, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, determined to find answers. Little did she know, she was about to embark on a journey through 7 remarkable wines that would not only tantalize her taste buds, but also offer a surprising path to better health and a deeper connection with Tom. The first wine on her list was a classic, Pinot Noir, specifically from Oregon's Willamette Valley, just a short drive from her home. Margaret had always loved Pinot Noir for its silky texture and bright cherry notes, but she'd never considered its health benefits until now. As she dug deeper, she learned that Pinot Noir is rich in resveratrol, a powerful antioxidant known for supporting cardiovascular health. Resveratrol helps relax blood vessels, improving circulation and reducing the risk of clotting, key concerns for anyone over 60. Margaret thought of her heavy legs after gardening, the way her calves ached after a simple stroll through the neighborhood. Could this wine really make a difference? She read on, discovering that Pinot Noir's anti-inflammatory properties could also reduce oxidative stress, a major factor in aging. But what caught her attention most was a small study she found, one that suggested improved blood flow could enhance intimacy by supporting physical responsiveness and energy levels. Margaret smiled softly, imagining sharing a glass with Tom on their patio, the warmth of the wine mirrored by a renewed warmth between them. She poured herself a small glass of the Willamette Valley Pinot Noir they already had in their pantry, the deep ruby liquid catching the light as she held it up. The first sip was a burst of red fruit, cherries and raspberries, with a hint of earthiness that reminded her of the forest trails she and Tom used to hike in their younger years. She closed her eyes, savoring the moment, and pictured Tom's face lighting up the way it used to when they danced in their kitchen after a glass or two. Back then, intimacy had been effortless, a natural extension of their laughter and shared glances. Now, at 64, Tom seemed more reserved, his energy sapped by long days and the subtle aches of aging. But Margaret wasn't ready to give up on those moments. She jotted down a note to pick up another bottle of Pinot Noir for their next date night, already imagining how they might rediscover that closeness over a shared glass, the wine working its quiet magic on their bodies and hearts. Next on her list was a wine she'd heard of but never tried, Malbec, particularly from the Mendoza region of Argentina. Margaret wasn't as familiar with Malbec, but the more she read, the more intrigued she became. Malbec is packed with polyphenol, compounds that support healthy blood vessels and improve circulation by reducing blood pressure and preventing plaque buildup in arteries. For someone over 60, like Margaret or Tom, this was a game changer. High blood pressure had been a concern for Tom ever since his last checkup, and Margaret often worried about his heart health, especially after his father had passed from a heart attack at 70. But Malbec offered more than just cardiovascular benefits. Its bold, dark fruit flavors, think blackberry and plum, were often paired with a subtle spiciness that could awaken the senses, making it a perfect wine to share during an intimate evening. Margaret imagined the two of them sipping Malbec by candlelight, the rich flavors sparking conversation, maybe even a shared laugh or two, as their bodies quietly benefited from the wine's properties. She couldn't resist ordering a bottle online, eager to taste this new addition to their wine rack. When it arrived a few days later, Margaret uncorked it with a sense of anticipation, the deep purple hue of the wine promising something special. The first sip was a revelation, bold and velvety, with notes of blackberry jam and a hint of cocoa that lingered on her palate. She called Tom over, handing him a glass with a playful smile. "What's this?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "Something to make us feel young again," she replied, watching as he took a sip, his eyes widening in appreciation. They sat together on their couch, the rain pattering softly outside, and for the first time in weeks, Margaret felt a flicker of that old connection. Tom reached for her hand, his touch warm and familiar, and she wondered if the Malbec's circulation-boosting properties were already at work, or if it was simply the act of sharing something new that brought them closer. Either way, she was grateful. The third wine on her list was a bit more familiar, Cabernet Sauvignon, but Margaret was surprised to learn that not all cabs were created equal when it came to health benefits. She focused on a Cabernet Sauvignon from California's Napa Valley, known for its high levels of procyanidins, a type of flavonoid that supports endothelial function, the lining of blood vessels, crucial for good circulation. At 62, Margaret knew that endothelial dysfunction was a common issue as we age, leading to stiffness in arteries and reduced blood flow. But procyanidins could help, improving vascular flexibility and even supporting libido by ensuring better blood flow to all the right places. She blushed slightly at the thought, but the science was clear. Better circulation often translated to better intimacy, especially for couples over 60 who might be navigating the physical challenges of aging. Margaret already had a bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon in their collection, a gift from a friend who'd visited the region last year. She decided to open it that evening, pairing it with a simple dinner of grilled steak and roasted vegetables, perfect for the wine's bold profile. The Cabernet was intense, with flavors of black currant, cedar, and a touch of vanilla from oak aging, its tannins firm but smooth. Tom raised his glass, toasting to feeling young again, and Margaret couldn't help but laugh, the sound light and carefree in a way she hadn't felt in months. As they sipped, she noticed Tom's posture relax, his usual tension easing as they talked about their day, their dreams, their shared past. The wine seemed to work its magic, not just on their bodies but on their spirits, reminding them of the joy they'd always found in each other's company. Margaret made a mental note to keep Cabernet Sauvignon on hand, its benefits too good to ignore for their health and their relationship. The fourth wine took Margaret by surprise, a lesser-known variety called Carménère, originally from Bordeaux but now primarily grown in Chile. She'd never heard of Carménère before, but her research revealed it as a hidden gem for circulation and intimacy. Carménère is rich in anthocyanins, pigments that give the wine its deep color and act as potent antioxidants, reducing inflammation and improving blood vessel health. For someone over 60, this was a major plus. Chronic inflammation could exacerbate circulation issues, leading to fatigue and even erectile dysfunction in men, a concern Margaret knew Tom had been quietly grappling with. But Carménère's benefits didn't stop there. Its flavor profile, think dark berries, green pepper, and a hint of smokiness, made it a sensual wine, one that could set the mood for a romantic evening. Margaret was intrigued, her mind racing with the possibilities of how this wine might bring her and Tom closer. She ordered a bottle of Chilean Carménère from a local wine shop, picking it up the next day with a sense of excitement. That evening, she dimmed the lights in their dining room, lit a few candles, and poured 2 glasses of the deep red wine. The first sip was a revelation, bold and spicy, with a smoky undertone that felt both exotic and comforting. Tom took a sip and raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "This is different," he said, his voice warm with appreciation. They lingered over their glasses, the conversation flowing more easily than it had in weeks, and Margaret felt a spark of intimacy reignite between them. She couldn't say for sure if it was the Carménére's anthocyanins improving their circulation or the romantic ambience of the evening, but she didn't care. What mattered was the way Tom's hand found hers across the table, his touch a quiet promise of connection. Carménère, she decided, was a keeper. The fifth wine on her list was another surprise, a Grenache, particularly from the Rhône Valley in France. Grenache wasn't a wine Margaret typically reached for, but she learned it was a powerhouse for circulation thanks to its high levels of polyphenol, similar to those found in Malbec. These compounds help dilate blood vessels, improving blood flow, and reducing the risk of cardiovascular issues, crucial for anyone over 60. But what made Grenache stand out was its lighter, fruit-forward profile, think strawberry, raspberry, and a hint of white pepper that made it a versatile wine for pairing with lighter meals or simply sipping on its own. Margaret read that improved circulation could also enhance physical intimacy by supporting energy and responsiveness, a benefit she and Tom could certainly appreciate. She smiled, imagining them sharing a glass of Grenache on their patio, the evening air warm and the conversation light, their connection growing with every sip. She found a bottle of Rhône Valley Grenache at a local wine store and brought it home, eager to try it with Tom. That evening, they sat outside as the sun set, the sky painted in shades of pink and orange. The Grenache was delightful, bright and juicy, with a soft spice that danced on her tongue. Tom took a sip and grinned, the first real smile she'd seen from him in days. "This is good," he said simply, and Margaret felt her heart lift. They talked about their plans for the summer, their voices mingling with the chirping of crickets, and Margaret noticed how Tom's hand rested on her knee, a small but meaningful gesture. The Grenache seemed to lighten their spirits, its circulation-boosting properties working quietly in the background as they rediscovered the ease of being together. Margaret made a note to add Grenache to their regular rotation, its benefits too good to pass up. The sixth wine was a bold choice, a Sangiovese from Tuscany, Italy. Margaret had always loved Italian wines, but she'd never considered their health benefits until now. Sangiovese, she learned, is rich in resveratrol and other antioxidants that support heart health and improve circulation, much like Pinot Noir. But what set Sangiovese apart was its ability to reduce oxidative stress, a key factor in aging that could lead to poor blood flow and fatigue. For someone over 60, this was a major benefit. Margaret often felt drained after a day of errands, and she knew Tom struggled with low energy too. But Sangiovese's bright acidity and flavors of cherry, tomato leaf, and leather also made it a wine that could awaken the senses, perfect for an intimate dinner at home. Margaret imagined pairing it with a homemade pasta dish, the two of them laughing over their plates as the wine brought them closer. She picked up a bottle of Chianti Classico, a type of Sangiovese, from a nearby Italian market and planned a special dinner for the following night. She made a simple spaghetti bolognese, the rich tomato sauce a perfect match for the wine's acidity. When she poured the Sangiovese, its ruby hue sparkled in the candlelight, and the first sip was a burst of cherry and herbs, with a firm tannic grip that softened as she sipped. Tom took a sip and nodded approvingly, his eyes crinkling with a smile. They ate slowly, savoring the meal and the wine, and Margaret felt a warmth spread through her, not just from the alcohol, but from the connection she felt with Tom. The Sangiovese seemed to energize them both, its antioxidants quietly supporting their circulation as they laughed and reminisced about their early days together. Margaret couldn't help but think that this wine was more than just a drink. It was a bridge back to the intimacy they'd been missing. The seventh and final wine on her list was the most surprising of all, a lesser-known variety called Tannat, primarily grown in the Madiran region of France but also found in Uruguay. Margaret had never heard of Tannat before, but her research revealed it as a powerhouse for circulation and overall health. Tannat is one of the richest wines in procyanidins, even more so than Cabernet Sauvignon, making it a top choice for improving blood vessel health and reducing the risk of heart disease. At 62 and 64, Margaret and Tom both needed to prioritize their cardiovascular health, especially given Tom's family history. But Tannat's benefits didn't stop there. Its bold, tannic structure and flavors of blackberry, licorice, and dark chocolate made it a wine that demanded attention, perfect for a night of deep conversation and connection. Margaret read that improved circulation could also enhance physical intimacy, a benefit she and Tom were eager to explore. She ordered a bottle of Uruguayan Tannat online, intrigued by its reputation as a health wine. When it arrived, she planned a quiet evening at home, just the two of them, with no distractions. She poured the Tannat into their glasses, its inky black color hinting at its intensity. The first sip was a revelation, powerful and robust, with a depth of flavor that felt almost medicinal in its richness. Tom took a sip and let out a low whistle, clearly impressed. "This is something else," he said, and Margaret laughed, feeling a thrill of excitement. They sat together on their couch, the Tannat warming them from the inside out, and Margaret noticed how Tom's hand rested on her shoulder, his touch more confident than it had been in months. The wine seemed to work its magic, its procyanidins supporting their circulation as they talked late into the night, their connection deeper than it had been in years. Margaret couldn't help but marvel at how this lesser-known wine had brought them so much closer, its benefits as surprising as they were profound. As Margaret reflected on her journey through these 7 wines, Pinot Noir, Malbec, Cabernet Sauvignon, Carménère, Grenache, Sangiovese, and Tannat, she felt a sense of gratitude for the way they'd transformed her and Tom's evenings. Each wine had offered more than just a pleasant taste. They provided a pathway to better health, improved circulation, and a renewed sense of intimacy. At 62 and 64, Margaret and Tom had feared that their best years were behind them, that the physical and emotional challenges of aging would only grow harder. But these wines had shown them otherwise. They learned that Pinot Noir's resveratrol could ease Margaret's heavy legs, that Malbec's polyphenol could support Tom's heart health, that Cabernet Sauvignon's procyanidins could enhance their physical connection. Carménére's anthocyanins had brought a spark of romance, Grenache's slider profile had lifted their spirits, Sangiovese's antioxidants had energized their evenings, and Tannat's robust health benefits had deepened their bond. Margaret looked over at Tom, who was sipping the last of his Tannat, his face relaxed and content in a way she hadn't seen in months. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. These 7 wines had done more than improve their circulation. They'd reminded them of the joy of being together, of savoring life's simple pleasures even as they aged. Margaret knew they'd keep exploring, keep sharing glasses of wine on their patio, keep finding ways to stay connected. Aging, she realized, wasn't about losing what they had, it was about discovering new ways to hold on to it. For anyone over 60 watching their story unfold, Margaret's journey offers a roadmap to better health and intimacy through the simple act of choosing the right wine. Pinot Noir from Oregon, Malbec from Argentina, Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa, Carménère from Chile, Grenache from the Rhone, Sangiovese from Tuscany, and Tannat from Uruguay. These 7 wines aren't just delicious. They're a toast to living vibrantly, loving deeply, and aging with strength. So, the next time you're looking to enhance your circulation or reignite that spark with your partner, consider reaching for one of these bottles. You might be surprised at the difference a glass can make. And if Margaret and Tom's story resonated with you, why not share your own? Leave a comment with your favorite wine, and don't forget to subscribe to Inner Zen for more health and lifestyle tips to help you thrive after 60. Cheers to a life filled with love, connection, and the perfect glass of wine.